It was the first week of October when I noticed the pumpkin in my front yard. It wasn't there the night before. At first, I thought maybe one of my neighbors had left it there as a prank or maybe as part of some early Halloween spirit. My neighborhood in New Hampshire always went a little overboard with decorations once fall hit. Fake cobwebs, orange lights, even those inflatable skeletons that deflate and look like bodies during the day. But this pumpkin didn't fit the vibe. It wasn't bright orange like the ones you see in grocery stores or farms. It was darker, muddy orange, almost brown, and covered in long, deep cracks that looked like dried skin. I remember thinking it looked diseased. Still, I left it alone. I worked long hours as a mechanic, and by the time I got home, I barely had enough energy to cook dinner, let alone worry about some weird pumpkin. The next morning, it was closer to my porch. Not by much, just a few feet. But I swear I hadn't touched it. Nobody in the neighborhood mentioned moving it either. It made me uneasy, though. I kicked it back to where it had been and went to work. That night, it was back by the steps again. At that point, I laughed it off. I even texted my friend Mark, told him to quit screwing around with the possessed pumpkin. He swore he hadn't touched it, but I didn't believe him. By the fifth day, it was sitting right at the base of my door. I finally decided to throw it out. When I bent down to pick it up, I realized it was warm, like it had been sitting under a lamp. The surface was soft and leathery, not smooth like a pumpkin should be. I remember pulling my hand back and seeing a residue on my fingers. It wasn't pumpkin guts, it was black and sticky like tar. I threw it in the garbage bin and washed my hands 3 times before heading inside. Later that night, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. I'd forgotten that my new security camera automatically saved motion alerts. I half expected it to be a raccoon, but when I opened the clip, there was a man standing in my yard. He was tall, taller than any normal guy, maybe 6'6" or more, and he was wearing some kind of dark, tattered cloak. His head looked massive, round and misshapen. At first, I thought it was a hood or mask, but when he turned his head slightly, I could see the faint ridges of a pumpkin stem sticking straight out of the top. The figure crouched next to my trash bin. It slowly reached in, picked up the pumpkin, and held it to its face. The feed glitched for a second. When it came back, the figure was staring directly at the camera. No movement, no breathing, just watching. Then the footage cut out completely. When I checked the bin in the morning, it was empty. And there it was again, sitting neatly on the porch. This time, I didn't touch it. I called the local police, told them someone was messing with my property. They sent an officer over, but, of course, there wasn't much he could do. He said it was probably kids pulling a Halloween prank, maybe putting a fake prop in my yard. I showed him the video. He watched it twice, frowned, and said, maybe the camera malfunctioned. That night, I didn't sleep. Every small sound made me jump. At one point, I thought I heard scraping against the siding near my bedroom. I wanted to look, but something told me not to. I just stayed in bed, pretending I didn't hear anything until the noise stopped. When I stepped outside the next morning, the pumpkin was gone. For a second, I actually felt relieved. But then I saw something else. There were footprints leading away from my porch. Bare, human-like footprints. But wrong. The toes were long, pointed, and sunken deep into the soil like claws. The prints went down the driveway, across the street, and into the woods. I should have left it alone. But curiosity got the better of me. That evening, right before sunset, I followed the prints. They led about half a mile into the woods behind my house. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. No birds, no wind, just silence. Then I found it, a clearing, and in the center of it, maybe 8 or 9 pumpkins, all in different stages of decay. But what made my stomach twist was that they weren't carved in the usual way. They weren't hollowed out. They looked grown into shapes. Each one had human features bulging from inside. Mouths, eyes, even hints of noses pressed against the skin, like faces trying to escape. I remember stepping closer, trying to process what I was looking at, when I heard something breathing, deep and slow. It came from behind one of the larger pumpkins. Before I could move, a tall shape rose up from behind it, the same one from my camera footage. The cloak was made of burlap stitched with vines, and that pumpkin head wasn't a mask. I could see where it fused into the neck. Veins, dark and root-like, ran down its shoulders. I backed away slowly. My shoe snapped a twig, and its head twisted toward me. I swear I could hear bones creaking when it moved. It didn't chase me, it just stood there, tilting its head like it was curious. I ran until I saw the lights of my house again. When I got inside, I locked every door and window. I told myself it had to be a costume, maybe a crazy hermit or someone living in the woods. But deep down, I knew that thing wasn't human. That night, it came to my door. I woke up around 3 to slow, rhythmic knocking. Not pounding, just gentle taps. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. But then I saw something move through the window, tall and dark, standing on the porch. I ducked out of sight, heart pounding. When I looked again, it was gone. The next morning, I noticed something written on my front door. Smudged letters, drawn with something brownish red. Don't hurt my face. The pumpkin was back, sitting exactly where it had been. I called the police again. This time, I demanded they send someone. When they arrived, the writing had faded, like it was never there. The officer gave me this look like I was losing it. He told me to get some rest. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Mark's place across town. When I went back the next morning, my house was quiet. Too quiet. I stepped inside, half expecting the pumpkin to be waiting for me again. But it wasn't. The porch was empty. Then I noticed something on the floor near the door. A small piece of orange skin, dry and leathery, with black veins running through it. It wasn't pumpkin flesh. A few days later, I packed up and left that house for good. Moved to another part of the state. I never told the new owners what happened. I didn't want to sound insane. But sometimes I check the old security camera feed, just out of curiosity. I never deleted the account. A few weeks ago, I opened the app for the first time in years. The camera still works, somehow. The house looks the same, porch lights on, quiet street, peaceful neighborhood. And right in front of the door sits that same dark, cracked pumpkin. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me to a place called Maple Hollow Farms every fall. It was this small family-run pumpkin patch out in rural Illinois. Nothing fancy, just hay rides, a corn maze, apple cider, and a couple of goats for kids to feed. Every year, the owners would decorate the place with scarecrows and lights. It felt safe, cozy. But when I was 17, everything changed. In 2015, Maple Hollow shut down. The official story was that the owners retired, but around town, people whispered something else. They said a kid went missing inside the corn maze that October. a teenage boy who never made it out. Police searched the area for weeks but found nothing. No body, no blood, no trace. Just his phone in the middle of the maze with a cracked screen and dirt under the glass. 8 years later, I decided to go back. I don't really know why. Maybe nostalgia, maybe some weird need to see it again before the land got sold off. Either way, I parked my car near the old barn one evening in late October and stepped into what was left of the farm. The place looked abandoned, but not completely forgotten. The wooden sign still stood, though most of the paint had peeled off. Maple Hollow Farms, family fun all season long. A few of the old stalls were half collapsed and the fences leaned like crooked teeth. But the cornfield was still there. That's what caught my attention. Even though the rest of the farm was dead and overgrown, the maze looked clean. The paths were still visible, the stalks standing tall like someone had tended them. It didn't make sense. Corn should have rotted away years ago. I thought maybe some local farmer was using it again, but there weren't any fresh tire tracks or tools. Just a narrow dirt path leading into the maze, the same one I remembered walking when I was 10. So, like an idiot, I went in. At first, it was kind of peaceful. The smell of dry corn and earth filled the air, and the late sun cast long, golden shadows through the stalks. But after a few minutes, the lights started fading, and the place took on a whole different atmosphere. The wind barely moved. The only sound was my own footsteps crunching on the dirt. Then I heard it. A faint tapping sound, like someone drumming their fingers on wood. I froze, turned around. Nothing. Just the corn. The tapping came again, a little faster this time. It was hard to tell where it was coming from. The sound seemed to bounce off the stalks, echoing around me. Then over the tapping, I heard something else. A low humming. A tune. Slow and off-key. That's when I remembered the old tractor driver used to hum that same song during hay rides, some kind of old folk tune. I hadn't thought about it in years, but it made my skin crawl hearing it now, out here when I knew no one else was around. "Hello?" I called out. "Is somebody there?" No response. I walked a little further, trying to convince myself it was just the wind. The maze twisted left, then right, then left again, and that's when I realized something weird. The path behind me was gone. Like, actually gone. Where I thought I had just come from, there was now a solid wall of corn. I reached out to touch it. The stalks were rough, brittle, real. I pushed, but they didn't budge. I tried another turn, thinking I was mixed up, but every direction I took led to more walls. I was boxed in. That's when I heard the humming again, this time closer. It was followed by a soft, dragging sound, like something being pulled through the dirt. I turned in a slow circle, flashlight shaking in my hand. The sound circled me. The air grew colder, heavy with the smell of wet soil. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Something tall and thin step between the stalks. At first, I thought it was a scarecrow. It had that shape, long limbs, a narrow torso, straw-colored clothing. But then it moved. Its head jerked slightly, like a puppet being tugged on strings. I shined my light toward it, and that's when I saw its face. It wasn't a mask. It was made of stitched-together leather. Animal hides, maybe, but uneven, rough, with dark stains like blood that had soaked through long ago. There were holes where eyes should be, but Inside was nothing but darkness. I stumbled backward, tripping over the uneven dirt. The figure tilted its head, just watching me. Then it started to move. Slow, dragging steps, one after another. The tapping sound echoing again. I ran. I don't remember which way I went. I just remember the sound of corn snapping around me, the heavy thud of footsteps behind me. Every turn looked the same. I screamed, but my voice just got swallowed up by the maze. Then, everything went silent. I stopped running, panting hard, trying to listen. The air was still again. For a second, I thought maybe I'd lost it. Then I saw something glinting on the ground. Metal, half buried in the dirt. It was a bracelet. A thin rusted band with a name etched on the inside. Ethan. That was the name of the kid who'd gone missing back in 2015. The second I realized that, the humming started again, right behind me. I turned around, and the light from my flashlight hit something inches from my face. It was a scarecrow post sticking out of the ground, but instead of straw or fabric, there was a body tied to it, or what was left of one. The flesh had dried and cracked like paper. The face was gone, not rotted, just missing, cleanly cut away. That's when I heard a voice whisper right by my ear, "You shouldn't have come back." I bolted through the corn, shoving through stalks until I hit open air and collapsed on the dirt road outside. My flashlight flickered and died. I ran to my car, sped down the highway without looking back once. When I got home, I couldn't stop shaking. I told myself it had to be some messed up local playing a trick. But that night, when I took off my shoes, something fell out of one of them. A small, sharp object. It was a fingernail. I reported what happened, but the police didn't believe me. They said the farm had been condemned and closed off years ago. They sent an officer to check it out, but he said the cornfield was completely dead. Just broken stalks and weeds. Still, a week later, one of the officers called me privately. He said something strange. They found footprints near where I said the maze was, but not mine. Bare ones. Dozens of them. When I asked if they looked fresh, he hesitated, then said, "No, they looked old, really old." That was the last I ever heard from him. A few months later, the town finally tore the place down and burned the field. I thought that would be the end of it. But last fall, I was driving late at night and passed the edge of town where the farm used to be. The land was empty now, just dirt and grass. Except for one thing. In the middle of the field, someone had set up a single scarecrow. It was tall, wearing tattered clothes, its head slumped to one side, and when my headlights hit it, I swear I saw the faint outline of a stitched leather face and a rusted bracelet hanging from one of its wrists. I used to work as a night security guard for a small community college up in upstate New York. It was one of those quiet campuses, surrounded by forest, where the loudest thing you'd hear after midnight was the wind scraping against the windows. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I'd usually spend it driving between dorm buildings, checking doors, and occasionally kicking out a drunk student or two. It was an easy job, at least until that October. That's when I learned why no one liked patrolling near Dorm 7. Dorm 7 was built right at the edge of the woods. Everyone called it the dead end because the road literally stopped there. Beyond it was just trees, miles of them. Students like to tell ghost stories about those woods. The most popular one was about a girl named Lacey who went missing there in 2003. Supposedly, she'd been walking back to her dorm one night and decided to take the shortcut through the trail. She never made it out. Campus police searched for weeks and never found a body. After that, the college fenced off the trail and posted signs warning students to stay out. But every year, someone would cut through anyway, usually around Halloween, and every year the night shift guards would get prank calls about screams coming from the woods. I never took those seriously, until the night I heard them myself. It was October 28th, 2019, a Tuesday. I remember because the night started normal. I was in my patrol car, drinking coffee, scrolling my phone, when the radio crackled. A voice came through. Faint. Distorted. There's someone behind dorm 7. She's screaming. At first, I thought it was dispatch, but the frequency was wrong. It wasn't one of ours. Still, I grabbed my flashlight and started driving that way. The dorm was dark except for a few windows. The woods behind it looked like a solid black wall. My headlights barely made a dent in it. I stepped out, scanned the tree line, and called out, "Campus security!" Nothing. Just wind. Then I heard it, faint but clear. A scream. It came from deep inside the woods, high-pitched, panicked, and human. I radioed dispatch to send backup, but the signal cut out before I finished my sentence. No static, no noise, just dead silence. That only happened when something was wrong with the tower, and that tower had never failed before. Still, I couldn't ignore the scream. I took my flashlight and followed the trail behind the dorm. The fence was still there, but part of it had been pulled back like someone had ripped it open. About 50 yards in, I found a shoe. A Converse. Muddy, old, torn at the heel. I was about to pick it up when I noticed drag marks in the dirt leading deeper into the trees. The leaves were disturbed, long grooves pressed into the soil, like someone had been pulled. I followed the marks for maybe 2 minutes before my radio came alive again. This time, it wasn't dispatch. It was a girl's voice. "Help me, please. He won't stop." I froze. Who is this? Static. Then the voice again, quieter this time. "She's still here." My flashlight flickered. For a second, the beam caught something between the trees. Movement, fast and low. I called out again, thinking maybe it was a student, but the words stuck in my throat. The smell hit me first. Rot. Like old leaves mixed with wet earth and something sour, metallic. I'd smelled death before, and this was close. Then I saw it. A figure crouched behind a tree about 20 feet away. Long black hair, pale skin that looked almost gray in my light. A girl. She was wearing a thin dress soaked with dirt and leaves. She looked like she'd been dragged through the woods. "Hey, are you hurt?" She didn't move. I stepped closer, and that's when she lifted her head. Her eyes were white. Not glowing, just milky, like a corpse's. I froze. Her mouth opened, and the same voice came out, the one from my radio. "Help me find the rest of me." I stumbled backward, tripping over a root. My flashlight hit the ground and rolled, casting light across her body, and that's when I realized her legs weren't touching the ground. She was hanging. Her feet dangled inches above the dirt, her hair swaying slightly as if from a breeze that didn't exist. I bolted. I don't even remember running back to the dorm. One minute I was in the woods, and the next I was bursting through the back door, gasping for breath. I locked it behind me and just stood there, trying to process what I'd seen. When I finally got through to dispatch, they sent campus police and local officers to check it out. They found nothing. No girl, no footprints, no shoe. But the next day, one of the officers came by my post. He looked pale and nervous, like he hadn't slept. He said they'd found something about 20 feet from where I'd described the encounter, buried in a shallow pit under a tree. A skeleton. Female. They said it was incomplete, missing several bones, including the skull. After that, the college closed off Dorm 7 permanently. The building's still there, but nobody lives in it. They claim it's for maintenance issues, but the real reason is obvious. A few months after the incident, I quit the job. But I still talk to a few of the newer guards. Every once in a while, they tell me weird things. Lights flickering in Dorm 7, motion sensors going off at night, strange voices on the radio whispering words they can't make out. One guy said he found a note on his patrol car windshield one morning. It was written in what looked like charcoal. "She's still here." I told him to get out of that job while he could. A year later, curiosity got the better of me. I went back to campus on a cold October evening, just to see it again. The place looked smaller than I remembered. Dorm 7 sat at the far end, windows boarded up, the woods beyond it darker than ever. But there was something new. Someone had set up a single floodlight near the trail entrance, pointing into the trees. Beneath it was a plaque on a metal post. It read, "In memory of Lacey Ann Porter, 1984 to 2003. Someone had left flowers at the base, but they were wilted and gray." I crouched down to read the rest of the inscription, and that's when I heard it. A soft, static-like hiss. I glanced around, but I was completely alone. Then I realized it was coming from my pocket. My old security radio. I hadn't touched it in over a year. I'd brought it out of nostalgia, but the batteries were long dead. Or they should have been. Through the static came a single voice. "Help me find the rest of me." I dropped the radio and ran back to my car. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The floodlight was still shining on that trail. And standing just beyond the light, half in shadow, was a girl. Her head tilted to the side, white eyes staring straight at me.